Hello, welcome to a sit down video. I feel like I barely film these unless I'm doing an unboxing video, in which case that's normally a very quick video. But I thought I would do this because we've got the Easter weekend very fast approaching here in England, and we get a long bank holiday weekend. I know not everybody does get the bank holiday days, but for me it's a 4-day weekend and I've added on some days either side of it. So I've got just over a week off, which I'm really looking forward to because I haven't really had any time off this year at all yet. So this is very much needed for me. I'm going to spend a lot of time with friends and family and just doing a couple of things with friends and family, but I'm also going to spend a lot of time reading. So I thought it would be fun to do a little video of recommendations, 10 different books that I would recommend for you to read over the long weekend. These are books that I have all read, so these aren't on my own TBR, but they're just books that I've put on this list because maybe they're fast paced and I feel like they would be a fun read for the weekend, or they might be ones that I feel like could stretch out over the whole weekend and just you'd be able to sit and dip in and out of them and really enjoy the pacing of them. Or they might just be books that I just put on here because I think they're great and I think that it's a great excuse to be able to tell you about them. So these are the 10 books that I think you could read over the Easter weekend. Also, I feel like I'm really out of practice with sit down videos, so hey, let's see how this goes. So the first book to recommend to you today is Etaf Rum's A Woman Is No Man. This is a stunning book, both inside and out. I really love the sunset colours that we have on this cover. This I listened to as an audiobook last year. It was a fantastic audiobook if you do want an audiobook to read over the Easter weekend. This was a great audiobook. This follows two different characters who are from the same family, just a few generations, or one generation apart, because it's a mum and a daughter. So we're following one character in Palestine in 1990 and another character in Brooklyn in 2008. And we're seeing them both go through their own struggles to be who they want to be and live the lives that they want to live, but still very much being controlled by their families and the conflicts they face there, but also the love of the family as well. So this book was just brilliant. It's unlike anything I've read before in the way that it made me feel and the way that it set the story up between these two different time periods and how you're being fed the information but you don't quite know everything. I just think it was brilliantly done. I think this is perfect for the Easter weekend because I feel like it's the kind of book where you could just fully get immersed into it and just completely feel like you're falling into the story, and I think those kind of books are the best kind of books, so that is why it's on this recommendations list. From a family historical / contemporary novel to a thrillery serial killer novel, we've got My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is definitely a very different type of vibe, but the pacing of this makes it incredibly addictive, and also this is a bit different because this follows not the serial killer but the sister of the serial killer, obviously by the title of the book. But it's very interesting because we get a different perspective and we see this sister trying to protect her sister and cover up everything she's doing. And then there's the question of morality, there's the question of how this is affecting her life and what her involvement in this means for her. And it's also a journey about the power of women and again about family, which is a bit of an accidental theme for the books in this video, but this is number 2 on my recommendations list. That sun is coming right through, but I really don't want to draw the blinds because it's been raining all day, so we're just going to deal with crappy lighting. I seem to be picking some kind of hard-hitting ones first. Okay, this is random order, I promise. This is Wandering Souls by Cecil Pinn. This is the arc, but there it is. This, I finished this last week. I listened to this as an audiobook. It's an incredibly fast-paced book and the audiobook was fantastic. So this follows 3 siblings who have had to come over to the UK from Vietnam during the Vietnamese War, and they've had to readjust their whole lives. Everything's been flipped upside down for them. They've gone through a lot of loss, and this is about their lives in the UK as they readjust, but also reflecting on the lives that they did have and the community that they had around them and how different that is now for them. This was really emotional and hard-hitting, and I think a really, again, a beautiful read for the unity of family. This is the 3rd one about family. Hang on, how many of these are about family? I think 5 out of 10 of these books have these kind of themes running through them. I promise you that was not deliberate, but I guess you might see a family at Easter, so it's themed kind of. I'm gonna really regret not drawing the blinds when I come to edit this, but I want the sun, I just don't want the sun. Anyway, this is a really fantastic read. Having finished it last week, it's still very fresh in my brain. I would highly recommend it, and it's very, very well deserving of being long-listed for the Women's Prize for Fiction. Okay, next up we've got Taylor Jenkins Reid, One True Loves. I had to put a Taylor Jenkins Reid book on this list. I know I've spoken about this one before, but I'm just going to give you a little refresh because I haven't done a sit-down video for a while, and I haven't spoken about this book for a while, I don't think. I definitely used to speak about it quite a lot though. This is a love triangle contemporary romance. I don't usually go for these types of books, but there is something about Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing that just makes me just pick up anything that she's written. So this is following a woman who has married her childhood sweetheart, and then he goes missing over the Pacific and is essentially presumed dead, I think. So she tries to move on with her life, and she gets a second chance at happiness when she gets engaged to an old friend. And then the husband comes back. This isn't a spoiler, this is in the blurb. He comes back, and it's the question of what does she do? The morality of it all, because obviously to him, he's been missing this whole time and just wants to see her, whereas she has mentally had to move on and change her mindset to it. And yeah, it's good. I quite enjoyed it. And also it's partially set in a bookshop, or she runs or works in a bookshop, so there's that as well. So it's very good. It's just the perfect Eastery read. Also, I feel like the cover, well, the cover's pretty summery, isn't it? But the yellow and the blue, kind of Eastery colours, I'm claiming it. Then we've got The Daughters of Izdihar by Hadir Elspey. This I read recently as well and absolutely loved it. It's an Egyptian-inspired fantasy that has elemental magic, feminist storylines and a sapphic romance. It's so good. This follows two different women who are both in lives that make them feel quite trapped for different reasons, and they want to do something about their situations, and they end up getting involved in a women's rights group for different reasons, but it brings them both together within this bigger community to try and fight for what is right. And in doing so, they end up getting mixed up with politics, with war, with violence, and everything that is going on with this world. This is a series, this is the first one. This ends in a way that will definitely have you desperate for the sequel, because I need it now. This was great. I really enjoyed this. I found it to be a really refreshing, fun fantasy when I really fancied one. So if you want an adult fantasy with elemental magic, fantastic world building, and also a political theme running through it as well, check this one out. Then we've got The Animals at Lockwood Manor by Jean Healey. This is set during the Second World War, right at the start of the war, and our main character is in charge of looking after the mammal collection at the Natural History Museum as it's transported to the countryside to Lockwood Manor during the war to remain safe. So she goes with it to stay at Lockwood Manor, and she realises that there's some rather strange things happening and that it might not have been the safest place after all, and there might be a few dangers lurking. This is a gothic horror, and I absolutely love gothic horrors. The reason I put this one on this list is because I feel like this is another one to be able to slowly sink your teeth into over a long weekend. As with any good gothic horror, you've got that kind of balance of not being overtly scary, but still having those creepy atmospheric moments, and I just feel like this one does a really good job of balancing those things. Another one I read recently, if you watch my reading books about books video, you will have seen me talk about this one already. This is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin, and I loved this. If you've read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, you will have had a kind of an idea of Gabrielle Zevin's writing. This is to book lovers what Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is to gamers. This just is so brilliant. It follows a man who runs a bookshop. His wife has passed away and he's pretty unhappy, and then he comes across a baby or a young girl, like a 2-year-old I think she is, who has been just abandoned in his shop with a note saying that he has to look after her. And it's about how their lives intertwine and how really it does him the world of good. And it's very wholesome, it's also quite emotional, and it's all about love of books, and it's just fantastic. And what more could you want for a long Easter weekend? One that I read on a holiday last year and I feel like would make another great recommendation. In fact, this was the first book that I picked up to put in this video. This is The Book of Two Ways by Jodie Picoult. I picked this up on a whim for holiday. I added it to my wish list and was very kindly gifted it by Ian, one of my patrons. This one was a bit of a random pick for me, but it ended up being so good. So of course I'm telling you about it. This follows a woman who, right at the start of this book, there is a plane crash. Again, this is in the blurb, there's no spoilers. There's a plane crash and she sees her life flash before her eyes, but what she's thinking about isn't the life that she currently has, but one that she was on the path of having 15 years prior, When she gets safely to the airport, they give her the option to be transported anywhere in the world. And the choice for her is, does she go back to her family, or does she carry on and go to the site of an archaeological dig that she was once a part of, and where she was researching something that she never managed to finish, something that she was a part of 15 years ago, and the life that she was thinking about when she should have been thinking about her family. So this is the decision of which path does she take, and what the decisions we make, how the decisions we make affect us in the future, and the permanency, permanency of that. This was brilliant. I really liked this. I found this really emotional as well because of what she does as her day job. I don't want to go too much into detail, like to let you just discover it for yourself, but I think that this was done really well. Jodi Picoult perfectly captured the emotion of this book, but also the hope and the optimism in this and the positivity that it had, and I really love that angle of it as well. So yeah, this one started off this video idea, so this one, check it out. Also, it's quite spring colours again on the cover, so it works. Second to last, we have got When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. I read this one last year. I remember reading it in one day, or maybe 2 days, but over the course of a couple of days, sat out in the sun, and it's so good. It's set in the 50s, where there's been this mass dragoning in America where thousands of women have turned into dragons, flown and left everything they knew behind, and society is now like, what? This specifically follows a young girl whose aunt, who loved her very much and she loved very much, becomes a dragon and leaves her with her mum, who becomes overly protective of her. And you see this girl grow up in a society where people could just turn into dragons, and women specifically can just turn into dragons and fly away, and how that's changed society and the way that women are viewed and the roles that women have and the roles that men have as well. And it just is so interesting, the way that it approaches being a feminist story in this completely unique sense of this theme. And I just think it's really unique and brilliantly done in that way, and I think everyone should give this a go. It's unlike anything I've ever read before, and probably unlike anything I'll ever read again. So yeah, I love this. I think it's great. And lastly, we have got The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. This is not only a stunning book on the outside with very Eastery colours once again, I think we can say this is springy colours. This is also stunning on the inside as well. This is a really visually beautiful story following our main character who sacrifices herself to the sea god so that her brother's love doesn't have to be sacrificed. So she is taken to the spirit realm where she finds that the sea god is trapped in this sleep, and she decides she's going to have to awaken him so that he can stop this storm that is completely wrecking her town. So she goes about this journey and is in this fantasy world, and it's just brilliant. I think people compare this to the idea of Spirited Away. I find Spirited Away a really creepy film, so I'm just going to pretend that that's separate in my head, but honestly it's just so great, and I absolutely love the fantasy element of this and how I could see everything so clearly and still can. I think it's a sign of a really good book when you can look back and still see it in your head as you imagined it when you were reading it, and this one is perfect for that. But also it's just a great fantasy to be able to get your teeth stuck into. I feel like I've said that a lot. It's a good fantasy to be able to read over a long weekend. It's the perfect size as well. I think all these books have been around about this size because I feel like that's perfect for a 4-day weekend. So yeah, this is the final one on this list. So those were my recommendations for a long weekend of reading. Obviously you can just read these at any point, but I just thought it was a fun recommendations video to put together. So if you have enjoyed this, please do give it a thumbs up, comment down below what is on your TBR for the Easter weekend, or if you've got any to add to this recommendations list, please let me know. You can subscribe to see more of my face on your feed and hit the little bell icon to be notified when I post. You can also find a link down below to my Patreon and my online shop. Thank you so much for watching, keep smiling and stay positive.